So today I want to talk about relationships between introverts and extroverts. Before we get into the video, I just want to make it clear, first of all, that I am not a licensed or certified mental health professional. I'm studying to be a counselor, but if it is particularly important to you to get your information from someone who is a professional mental health practitioner, just know that I'm not that. I'm not presenting myself as that. Everything that I present in this video is based on my own opinions, experience, perspectives, um, and should be taken as such. I hope it's valuable to you, but I encourage you to always defer to what feels right for you and your circumstances and to your own intuition, your own feelings, desires, needs. I'm definitely not the last word on this topic, and I always welcome disagreement in my comments section. I don't ever claim to be right. I'm simply offering a perspective. Um, so with that out of the way, let's just chat a little bit about what an introvert is, what an extrovert is, and let's dispel possibly some of the misconceptions and myths around these two personality types. So fundamentally, an introvert is someone who recharges their energy levels by being alone. And an extrovert is someone who recharges their energy levels by being with others. And now there are a lot of kind of misconceptions floating around that introverts are shy, reserved, don't enjoy social gatherings, and that's just not true. It's just simply the case that introverts recharge their energy levels by being on their own. And anytime they're in social settings or interactions with other people, those energy levels gradually come down. And so there's a limit to how much of those kind of social settings and interactions introverts can participate in, because once their energy levels get really low, it can negatively affect them. They can get irritable, overtired, overwhelmed, grumpy, and just they can just feel like they need to withdraw. And it's very important for them to listen to that, because um, those are fundamental needs to do with how they're wired as a person, their nervous system, and what they need in order to feel good. So introverts just need those regular times on their own to just withdraw and be doing whatever it is that they like to do on their own, just engage with their own pursuits. And they can enjoy being around other people very much. Their relationships can mean a great deal to them, and they can love social settings even. Someone like me is someone who is incredibly invested in my relationships, and I do really enjoy social settings. But there's only so long that I can kind of participate in interacting with other people, and particularly in group settings, before I start to feel the effects of low energy and I need to be on my own. So that's all it means. And conversely, extroverts need to be around other people in order to recharge their energy levels. Extroverts actually feel kind of lonely and fatigued and just discontented when they're on their own. They wouldn't choose to be on their own if they, were given a preference. They prefer to be around other people, and that kind of really makes them feel energized and alive. Um, and although they might not necessarily hate being on their own, they might be able to tolerate being on their own perfectly fine. They might even enjoy it. A lot of extroverts have been known to enjoy some alone time. It's the amount and the degree which is important here. They tend to only be able to kind of want a certain amount of time on their own before they really need to be around other people in order to feel good. So that's a sort of fundamental difference between introverts and extroverts. And of course, it exists along a spectrum. There's no such thing as someone who is absolutely an extreme extrovert or an extreme introvert, or else there are very few people who are extreme extrovert or extreme introvert. Most people are somewhere along the spectrum, and you even have people who are sort of almost slap dang in the middle, called ambiverts, who tend to embody qualities of both extroversion and introversion. And I think those people are actually incredibly lucky, ambiverts, because to me, anyway, it seems that they're able to kind of be happy and content in social gatherings, but also on their own. But I do think it's important to mention, for the purposes of this video, that introversion and extroversion is a spectrum. And you can be really anywhere along that spectrum. Most people tend towards, one side of the spectrum or the other, but you could be in the middle, and you might not be very, far along on the extreme of extroversion or far along on the extreme of introversion. And you can have any kind of personality characteristics in addition to introversion and extroversion, which could also make a difference in how this personality trait is expressed. So try not to be too restrictive or rigid about these labels. I'm not trying to place people into a box by giving them titles like introvert or extrovert. I'm just more explaining how this works in order to help you to understand maybe your needs, your partner's needs, and how they might work, and how you might be able to kind of optimize your situation to make it work for you and for both of you. And so I think most people probably instinctively know whether they're more of an introvert or more of an extrovert, whether they're an ambivert right in the middle. And like for myself, for example, I'm definitely an introvert. I love being on my own. I can handle quite a lot of alone time and be perfectly content. And in fact, I do need alone time on a somewhat regular basis. I wouldn't be as extreme as some introverts that I've known. I've known introverts who could literally go days or potentially even weeks without seeing or even speaking to other people and be perfectly fine. That's not really me. I tend to find that after a day or so of being on my own and doing my own thing, I tend to kind of be ready and keen for a little bit of chat with other people, and I tend to need interaction on a semi-regular basis, but then that's also balanced by a need to be on my own as well. And likewise, extroverts don't need to be kind of total party animals, loud, obnoxious, life of the party types. That can be a stereotype associated with extroverts, and that's not necessarily true either. Extroverts are just really people who get benefits and enjoyment and energy from their interactions with others, and that's all that really means. And so, given that these needs are so kind of diametrically opposed, or that they're so radically different, introverts and extroverts, if you're anything like me, you might have at one time thought that the idea of an introvert and an extrovert, even an extreme, especially kind of an extreme extrovert and an extreme introvert being in a relationship with one another, that might sound quite daunting to you. You might think, well, how on earth am I going to get my partner to understand me? How on earth am I going to get my needs met in this relationship? If you're an introvert, you might be feeling like quite anxious and overwhelmed at the idea of having to kind of sit through lots of social gatherings with your partner. And if you're an extrovert, you might be kind of dreading the thought of spending lots and lots of evenings at home, kind of quietly cuddled up on the couch reading a book or watching a movie. That might sound like pretty boring to you. And so I think it's great to have these sorts of discussions about how people with different needs and different personalities can potentially coexist very contentedly and happily in a relationship. And so the first thing I want to kind of lay down as sort of the thesis for what I'm going to say in this video is that I think it's very important not to look to our partners to get all our needs met. I mean, I think this is something that we're becoming more and more aware of as a society as time goes on, and hopefully as ideas about relationships evolve and improve, we're understanding that it's really unreasonable and unfair to expect one person to fully understand us and meet all of our needs. That's just not realistic to put on another person. And so, as much as we can, I think that it is a good idea to have a life that you create that is as supportive of you and your needs as possible, so that you're not putting an undue burden on your relationship. Now, I'm also not an advocate of being completely independent in your relationship. We are human beings with attachment styles and attachment needs, and we definitely do get some of our needs met in a relationship, and those needs are incredibly important. And I'm not for 1 minute suggesting that you deny those needs. Definitely, your relationship should be supportive. It should be emotionally satisfying. You should be able to feel like you get certain needs, such as your need for affection and sex and companionship from your partner. At least, you should be getting those needs met, at least to the point that you can be happy and content. But I'm just saying that in order to place the least amount of burden on our partners possible, we also kind of need to take responsibility for meeting our own needs. And that can also be translated into communicating those needs to our partner. If there's something that our partner isn't doing that we wish they would do, which would make the relationship more supportive and help us to fulfill those needs for ourselves, then we should be free to have those sorts of conversations with our partner. But we also need to take responsibility ourselves for kind of thinking, well, where could I potentially meet this need for myself? And where could I, if my partner is struggling with this, is there a way to kind of work around this so that I take that burden off them? So how does this work in the context of introvert-extrovert relationships? Well, I've actually known introvert-extrovert relationships to work extremely well. But I think the important underlying kind of principle of these relationships is that each person really needs to understand the different needs that their partner has in the relationship. So can an introvert and an extrovert fall in love? Of course they can. They can fall in love, they can want to be together, and having these different personality types of introversion and extroversion most definitely does not have to be the death knell of that relationship. Certainly not. If anything, I think introverts and extroverts can actually greatly help to complement and balance each other, and they can help to bring each other closer to the middle of the spectrum, and that kind of lovely place where a lot of ambiverts sit. I think that extroverts are fantastic for bringing introverts out of their shell. Obviously, if that feels right and comfortable to the introvert, but an extrovert can be a lovely source of fun and adventure and kind of, chat and relationship building for the introvert. And similarly, I think that introverts can provide a very kind of calming, relaxing, kind of introspective side to the relationship as well. And they can help extroverts to sort of maybe slow down and be a little bit more reflective. And I think that this can be incredibly healthy for both people, just to kind of explore and develop different sides of their personality. I know that for myself, as someone who's quite an extreme introvert, I think if I didn't have extroverts in my life, I'd probably just spend way too much time at home on my own, and maybe not leave my house as much as I do. And so I'm actually profoundly grateful to the extroverts in my life for kind of bringing me out of myself sometimes and encouraging me to explore and, do things that I might otherwise not do if I were left to my own devices. I love extroverts. I value the extroverts in my life enormously for the fun and adventure and the new experiences that they bring. I find that the enthusiasm of extroverts can be really quite contagious and infectious, and it's lovely to have them around. And I think in some ways that's probably why I gravitate towards extroverts in certain areas of my life. I just I really admire their differences from myself. I really admire the way that they can kind of just keep going, and their energy and enthusiasm for life and for new experiences, and the way that they have so much more patience and kind of willingness when it comes to other people and their interactions with other people than I do. It's kind of an inspiration to me. And similarly, I feel that I bring a sense of kind of calmness and relaxation and just maybe a sense of zen to the extroverts in my life. I find that sometimes extroverts can be like a mile a minute. Their energy can sometimes be a little bit chaotic. And I think an introvert can help an extrovert to just sort of slow down and think and kind of just take things one step at a time, and even just kind of be quiet and reflect sometimes, and just explore that kind of calmer side to life, which is also beneficial for extroverts, even for mental health reasons, physical health reasons. I think introverts probably tend to sleep more than extroverts, which is one health benefit right there. And so this is something that you could potentially find tons of examples of, the way that introverts and extroverts can bring out these different sides of each other and help each other to see a different side of life. I've just named a few examples here, but you could probably think of dozens more. And I would encourage you, if you are an introvert who's in a relationship with an extrovert, or an extrovert who's in a relationship with an introvert, I encourage you to think about the contrast in your partner, the ways in which they're different to you, and the ways in which those differences can actually be a complement to your life, and the ways in which those differences can help you to develop different sides of yourself, and to just have new experiences and new positive aspects to your life that you might not have had without that person. As I say, the more extroverted people in my life help me to socialize more. They push me to invest more in my relationships and to communicate more and to leave the house more than I would otherwise. They really bring that infectious sense of fun and adventure into my life, which I just find really intoxicating. So I love thinking about how the extroverts in my life kind of open me up to a new way of being and thinking and feeling. So I encourage you to do that first of all. Make a list of the differences in your partner, and perhaps write or make a mental note next to those differences of how those differences positively affect your life. The other thing I want to mention, and it's really linked to what I said earlier about one person not meeting all our needs, is I would encourage you to think of the different ways in which you as an introvert or extrovert approach a particular situation, and how that's different from how your partner would approach that situation. And then to think of a solution that would benefit the needs of both of you, that could also work in a practical sense. So let's use an example of let's say you have mutual friends who invite you to a birthday party. Like you get invited as a couple to a birthday party. Now, typically, an introvert, if they agree to go, they're generally going to want to go for maybe a few hours, and then they're going to want to go home. or else they might be able to stay the whole night, but then they're typically not going to want to go to another social gathering for like maybe a month. And whereas the extrovert could go to the party and be there all night and then do the exact same thing the next day or the next weekend, or, you know, they can just keep going and going. And so it's really important, I think, that introverts and extroverts work out ahead of time how they're going to feel in that situation and discuss that, discuss their needs, and work out some sort of solution maybe beforehand. I suppose this presupposes that you have two people who understand what introversion and extroversion is, and they've discussed their needs with each other, which I think is super important. If you're an introvert, it's really important to be able to say to your partner, I'm an introvert, you know, typically I can only do a certain amount of social interaction, and then I really need to withdraw and be by myself for a little bit. Otherwise I get tired and grumpy and overwhelmed and stressed, and it's just not a good thing for me. And so, you know, to look after myself, I really need to make sure that I'm limiting my time at this particular social gathering, and I'm giving myself enough downtime. And similarly, an extrovert needs to be able to say, you know, I really have a need to be around people. I really want to see people. I don't want to be by myself. I tend to get very bored and lonely and even kind of neglected. I feel kind of down and not so great when I'm on my own. So I really need to have this regular time with other people. And it's important that you have those sorts of conversations and that neither of you take the other person's needs or personality type personally. It's not about you. It's about how that person is inherently wired and what they inherently need in order to feel good and to be happy and to function, you know, well as a person, and to just feel kind of supported and content in their life. And you as a partner can really do so much to support your partner by understanding their needs and reading up on what introversion and extroversion are, and how your partner gets those needs met and how you can support them to get those needs met. So if we go back to the example of the birthday party, as I say, it's very likely that the introvert will only want to go for a few hours and then come home, whereas the extrovert might want to go and be there all night. And only come home much later and, you know, be kind of all ready to do it again the next day. So I suppose you have two options in a situation like that, or potentially multiple options, but two kind of major ways that you can approach a situation like that. The first approach is that you could talk about, well, I think it's important, as I say, for the conversation to have happened about your different needs and your different approach to that situation, and what you each want. You could choose to compromise and say, okay, well, if the introvert wants to leave at, say, 10 o'clock and the extrovert wants to leave at, say, 1 in the morning, you could compromise and say, okay, well, we'll leave at 11:30. And that might be a good solution, but it also might leave both people feeling a bit frustrated. So that would just be something for you to work out with your partner. Like, would that work? Is that something that we could both be happy with? And that might depend on how much social interaction you had during the course of that week. So if the introvert is feeling particularly tired and particularly sort of maybe burnt out on people from that week, then going to 11:30 might be a bridge just too far for them. And similarly, if the extrovert hasn't really had much interaction with people that week and really feels like this birthday party is something they really want to go to and enjoy, then leaving at 11:30 might also be frustrating for them. So in a situation like that, you could choose to take two separate cars if that is feasible for you. You could choose to arrive by two different means of transportation, or you could arrive together and you could arrange for the extrovert to get a lift with someone from the party, so the introvert can go home when they've had enough. And I think this this idea of being willing to be a part, when it comes to social situations, because that's the fundamental difference between introverts and extroverts. Being willing to have this kind of yielding wiggle room in your relationship is really what's going to make or break that relationship. What's going to make all the difference as to whether you can both be happy in that relationship. Are you willing to kind of give the other person that slack to get their own needs met without you? So if you are the introvert, are you willing to let your extroverted partner stay on at parties and social gatherings, or even attend social gatherings without you? Are you willing for all the, consequences that are going to come with that? And similarly, if you are the extrovert, are you willing to go to social gatherings without your introverted partner? Can you handle that? Is that something that is workable for the two of you? And I personally think that the success of your relationship is going to come down to that. To what extent can you compromise and perhaps find a middle ground? Because probably in an ideal relationship, you're going to have, different situations are going to call for different solutions. So there might be some social gatherings and settings where you decide to compromise, where you decide to go for a certain amount of time, and then you mutually agree that you're going to leave at a particular time that feels okay for both of you. And then there are going to be other times where the extrovert is either going to have to go to the social gathering on their own without their partner, or they're going to be staying late and their introverted partner is going to be going home early. And so you really need to have those conversations and look within yourself and see, okay, am I okay with doing that? Is this something that's going to work for our relationship? Is this a solution that we can both be happy with? Now, personally, for me, I think that if I'm in a relationship with an extrovert, that is absolutely essential to do. I need to be completely content with the fact that my extroverted partner is going to be going to certain social gatherings without me. And I suppose as long as I get an invite, or as long as I feel that maybe sometimes I would be welcome to join, I really don't mind that whatsoever. It actually gives me a good opportunity to sometimes have that very precious alone time that I crave. And as I say, you really need to ask yourself these questions. Are we willing to be apart when it comes to kind of social interactions? And are we willing, is this a compromise that we're willing to make for our relationship? So of course, things like trust and respect for one another and an understanding of differences are absolutely essential. I know a couple who have like an introvert extrovert relationship. He is an extreme extrovert and she is kind of an extreme introvert, and they have been together for many years and their relationship works really beautifully, and I really admire it because he's someone who loves to go to parties and festivals and concerts and weekends away, and she's more of a homebody and she loves to stay home and kind of just be kind of more reserved and quiet and on her own, and she likes to do her own thing at home, which I completely understand. But they have this wonderful relationship of respect and trust where she is very supportive of him going to these kind of social events and gatherings without her. And he's very supportive and understanding of her staying home and doing her own thing while he's away. And it works beautifully between them. So yes, it does involve a fairly significant amount of time apart. And so you also, I suppose, need to ask yourself whether you're someone who can handle that. Can you handle the time apart so that both of you can get your needs met? That wouldn't be a problem for me personally, but that's something that you're going to have to ask yourself and discuss with your partner. If you kind of you might be an introvert and still need that bit of togetherness, and so that's something you can negotiate as well. even if you don't always go to the social gatherings, you might still, want that one-on-one time with your partner on a regular basis. And again, that's something that can be negotiated quite happily and peacefully between two people, as long as you're willing to be respectful and understanding of each other's needs. So I hope that you have enjoyed this video. I hope you find it beneficial. If you are an introvert or extrovert in a relationship with someone who is opposite to you in that way, I hope that you find wonderful and fulfilling solutions to make your relationship work. I'd love to hear about them if you want to share. And yeah, I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye everyone, and have a lovely afternoon.